So today we're going to talk about Brim, but we're not just going to talk about Brim, we're going to talk about team comps. And this is a video I wanted to do as soon as I saw this game. If you watched me do the watch party on this game, you'll know that I was kind of fuming when this was going on because G2 decided to play this comp on Ascent, okay, which is Chamber, Sova, Sage, KO. So far, pretty normal. All these agents are, picked fairly often on this map. And then Brim. And Brim is not picked often on this map. And I really hated this Brim pick, and I'll explain why in this video. And actually, G2 themselves did move off the Brim after this map. They would actually lose this map, but win the series, and obviously go on to win the whole tournament. But this was something that I just had to come back to and talk about team comps to try and, help you guys think about team comps, particularly with the Premier mode coming out pretty soon, hopefully, as well. So first off, let's just talk about Brim and what is good about Brim, what is bad about Brim, okay? So obviously, most of you will, be very familiar with Brim. You've got the Molly, you've got the Stim Beacon, you've got the ult, and then you've got his smokes. And the thing about Brim is with these abilities, with the ult, with the Molly, with the Stim Beacon, I would say that these three abilities are probably going to get you a certain amount of value no matter what. And to me, with the Stim Beacon making you go faster, the Molly and the ult, they generally tend to favor a more aggressive team style, I would say, overall, where Brim, can help you, with the Stim Beacon, like zoom in as you might want to, and then he can use the Molly and the ult in post-plant scenarios and, hopefully, close out the round from there. The other, of course, thing that Brim has is his smokes, right? And Brim is a bit different to, Astra or Omen, the other common picks on a map like Ascent, where you can smoke three things at once, right? That's kind of a Brim thing that's solo to Brim, and also his smokes last a little longer. But the thing is, of course, unlike Astra and Omen, those smokes do not recharge, and that is kind of the crucial difference between a Brim and an Astra or an Omen. So what we have in Brim is an agent who's, helpful for getting in potentially onto site and then closing out that round with that post-plant utility. That's generally how on the attacking side Brim will work for a lot of different teams. The thing is, of course, here, G2 are not playing any duelist, right? They're playing a no duelist comp on Ascent, an already pretty defensive-sided map. So you look at that and you think, well, they aren't probably going to be that aggressive overall because, they don't have that duelist to work alongside the Brim and get aggressive and get in onto sites fast and whatnot. And so that might be a bit of a problem. But then there's another problem as well, as I said, with the non-rechargeable utility, and that is the combo that Brim has here with the Sage, because playing both Brim and Sage on this map together, I think, again, caused G2 some problems, in that Sage has the same problem as Brim in a way that, once that wall is gone and once the two slows have gone, you're really lacking that utility to really do much, and that is exactly what punished them. And so let's take a look here at this round number 2, right? And we can see straight away we've got this Brim smoke here, this little one-way in A main. This is an extremely common one-way. You probably should be doing it in your games yourself if you're playing a controller, and it's done all the time. And so obviously this is one of the 3 smokes that Brim has available in this round. The problem with this is, and a common problem that G2 had is, well, do I use a second one here, right? Once this smoke runs out, do I then waste a second one? And then if that one runs out, do I then use a third one? And the answer is, I don't know, right? And that was a real problem, I think, for G2, is do you then use all of your smokes just defending this one way? What if they just wait it out all the way and then just, get this space for free, right? Like, there are some real problems here that G2, I think, had. And then combining that with a Sage as well, who kind of has the same problem, it ran into rounds like this, where it's round 2, G2 won the pistol, so they've got the guns against, just a couple sheriffs and whatnot for Cloud9. And you're going to see they defend this pretty heavily, right, early on with the one-way, with the KO nade, right? Everything looks fine. But basically, Cloud9 pretty quickly, I think, figured out how to play. I mean, even the Molly is used there early on as well. And so now, this Brim is basically down to just 2 smokes. And Cloud9, as I was going to say, I think pretty quickly figured out, as the Sage wall is up already, right? We've still got plenty of time left, that they just need to play slow, poke and prod around the map like they're doing here. There goes another Brim smoke. Glance is now down to 1 Brim smoke for the rest of the round. There's still a minute left in the round. The Sage wall will go down at some point as well. You're seeing the point here that all they need to do is poke and prod in the different areas of the map, get that utility out, and then you essentially have 2 agents who are not going to have any utility to stop you. And so that is what Cloud9 just did. over and over and over again, right? And they just abuse that fact. And in fact, they very, very rarely in this game hit the site early, right? Because there is no need, because that's what you want to do. If you can get two agents to have no utility, and this is how you might be want to be thinking about, the game as well. If you are playing against Brim, Sage, you probably want to be playing pretty slow on your attacking side, right? Get out that utility so that they have none left by the time you actually go for that exec onto the site. And so you see we've ticked the time all the way down. The Sage wall is now broken that was in B main. And so now they're going to go for this site hit, right? And so 27 seconds left, they actually step onto the site and they manage to get the first kill. And this is kind of, what a lot of this half looked like, right? And so even with just, nothing here, Giuliano now, I know she's suppressed, but, she has no utility either now. She only has a heal, right? So essentially she's, fairly useless for this. The final Brim smoke goes up. They Sage wall off B main. They eventually kill Giuliano. All of a sudden it's a 4v3. And this, should be the easiest round in the game to win here. The second round after you've won the pistol, your opponents aren't forcing, right? This should be pretty much a free round a lot of the time. But in this case, they are actually going to lose it. The retake starts, but again, this Brim smoke, they use that third Brim smoke just there. That kind of puts a bit of a time limit as well as to how fast they have to do this retake, because now this Brim smoke has just gone, and so now this opens up the possibility for Bob to, come back into the round as well without a smoke being there. And so you see just like some of the limitations that it caused, and C9 White played it pretty well in figuring out what they needed to do. They get to do an Omen smoke there, on the very end of this post plant, and they will manage to get that final kill, win a thrifty round here, the second round, and they would go on to ultimately win this map. But whilst there was a problem on the defensive side, it was perhaps an even bigger issue on the attacking side anyway, because as you might know, with Brim, he's pretty meta on Bind and Fracture, but he's pretty rare here on Ascent, and there is a crucial reason for that. And that is that Ascent is perhaps, now the split has gone, the most mid-heavy map in the game, right? Most attacking rounds, particularly in pro games, you will see at least, one or two. A lot of teams will start, with a bit of a default towards mid and see what they can do. And so let's take a look here at round number 17. And you're going to see we got first Brim smoke in here, right? So now we only have two left. And so, income G2 here, they're going to start, scaling up towards mid. And, we're down one Brim smoke. But, oh, there goes the second Brim smoke, okay? Just in here. So there's two Brim smoke. So now we only have one left. Right, there's only one Brim smoke left. The problem is when you start thinking about this map, now that we've only got one smoke left, and this is, a fairly common two smokes to do with, Astro or Omen. Now that we've only got one smoke left, either we're going to have to come here pretty quickly and just do one, but if these fade, we are going to start being in some problems, because if we only smoke this, then there's no smoke for heaven even, like it just becomes a big problem. I'm sure you all are aware of that. And so that's exactly what's going to happen though in this round, is that we get to this point just here and these smokes are going to start to fade, and G2 haven't taken that much space just yet. And so what's going to end up happening here is, because we only have one smoke left, you see they're actually going to start pinging out on short as well. Basically Glance has to now try and watch this, because they aren't sure, if someone is now ahead of this and can potentially take an easy fight and get an easy kill for them. That's just a big problem. Eventually this other smoke is going to fade as well, and so they are just going to be left with one smoke. And so what happens is, eventually, Petra sees Bob just there, but now they're probably thinking like, we have to play for a kill now, right? We can't just exec onto a site with one smoke. That's just not probably going to work that well for us overall. And so Mary eventually just feels like, she has to try and find this kill, dies to Bob, and you start to see some of the problems straight away. And ultimately, actually, G2 would start to be exposed for that, because eventually what would happen is that Cloud9 White would realize, well, we know that you don't want to use those smokes like you just did in that last round, because you're going to be kind of stuck in a bad spot. So if we just buy an op, we can probably play some angles that, normally you wouldn't, get away with playing an op in generally a lot of the time, where it's Jazzy in this case is going to just sit here at the back of mid and just have an op. And normally this would just be smoked off all the time. But again, G2 have used one of these smokes just here, and they don't want to have to smoke that off, right? They don't want to smoke that off all of the time, right? And as I said, other angles as well, if we take that last round as example, might have been open, right? Like a heaven, for instance. And so what that's going to lead to is a round like this, where you're not smoking off top mid. You have to, just face an op, essentially, because you don't have the smokes to deal with it. You get the first kill for free on Petra just there, and already, it's a great situation for Cloud9 White, and they are just going to absolutely destroy in this round, right? And so now, after seeing the op, they feel like, well, now we have to smoke it. So again, we're in the same situation where now you only have one smoke, and so now you kind of have to go, and it's kind of forcing them in this instance to kind of go with it, right? And so what happens is they send in, the third smoke, because again, they kind of have to do this right now before, that sage wall that they just used just here, before this goes, and this smoke goes as well, right? They can't not go and allow this op to just sit on this angle and cross to B, because that would just mean that this whole B split idea just is never going to work, right? And you're just going to have to go through B main and run into Mel setup, and so it's just not a good situation to be in. And so you see how just an op kind of just destroyed them in essence, in a way, and eventually we end up with this cool cypher setup by Mel just here, and they're just gonna absolutely destroy, and this is just gonna be a nice easy round win for Cloud9 White. And you see the problems with this comp overall of playing this Brim. It just didn't help them really at all, right? When we think about Brim, we're thinking about, an aggressive agent who's, going to help the team push forward and then really help in those post-plant scenarios to potentially close out that round, right? And Brim on the defensive side, look, is, gonna give you a certain amount of value no matter what. The molly is pretty good. The ult is pretty good. So, it's not like Brim is completely useless, but I just think with the rest of this comp, it made it very easy for Cloud9 White to kind of expose the weaknesses in G2's comp. They seem to have such obvious weaknesses, and Cloud9 White took advantage of that and won this map pretty convincingly.